this video, I'm going to be using dichroic film to create an Orgonite charging platform. We sell a lot of these little platforms with grids on them, crystals on them. This is using the dichroic film, which is also very pretty. I started out my resin by using black pigment paste, where you only need a drop or two to get it pretty black. I then add some fine glitter just for some sparkle. I end up pouring, with this type of mold, I end up using 3 ounces of resin as the base, and then when I go to do the top part, I add an additional ounce or ounce and a half of resin. So I start off putting a little bit in there, and then I put in 1 teaspoon total of copper flakes. Orgonite is created by mixing 50% resin and 50% metal with 1 quartz crystal. It creates this piezo, I think that's how you say it, electric effect that takes unwanted energy in, clears it, and sends it out as clean energy. People place their jewelry on it, you can place your water on it, you can place your crystals on it, and the platform will actually, or any Orgonite piece, platform or otherwise, will clear the crystals or jewelry for you. Here I'm just mixing the copper into the little ball feet so it's not sticking up on top, and I pour the rest of my black resin in and let it set up overnight to dry. I did make a mistake in this video. The piece on the left is a piece I made originally. This is going to be my new one. With this dichroic film, this one has the bubbles, I'll say, going down, and I'm going to create this one with the bubbles going up. I thought that was a more brilliant idea, and I had no problems creating my first ones. This one I had a little bit of problem with, and I'll tell you why as we go along. You want to cut the piece. I have an older piece here. Cut the piece to fit, which when I originally cut it, it's a little bit too big, and then I get it just a tad bit too small. But no worries, it works out at the end anyway. So once you have it traced out, you just cut the film. It's very fine. And the film looks, wait till you see the final colors on this. The film looks kind of greenish orangish here. As you see in the piece on the left, it looks bluish purple. As it goes on to the black here, it looks kind of orange. And even in the finished piece, compared to each other, the newer one looks more orange, while the other one, the older one, looks blue and purple. But you'll see when I do picture or a video in different light at the end, how they just kind of match in color. Anyhow, now the bottom resin is dried, so I'm just putting in a little bit to form a base to put the new piece of film onto. And my problem here that started the whole thing, I should have just used the resin to stick down the piece of film and hold it there and let it dry overnight. What I ended up doing, as you'll see, is sticking it in and then adding more resin on top of it, and I kept getting air bubbles. I spent almost 20 minutes, I think, pushing down the film, trying to get it under the resin, under the resin. I deleted all that so you guys didn't have to watch all of it, but yeah, in hindsight, next time I do it, as you see, like I'm sticking it down there on top of the resin, but you still have to put resin on top of it. And again, if I had left it like this just to stick down and stay there and come back the next day, it would have been much easier to pour the top coat of resin on it. So I'm just here kind of jamming it down onto the resin to hopefully stick, which it didn't, using a little silicone tool there. Yeah, I spared you guys the agony of watching 20 minutes of me trying to poke this thing down. So here's the top coat of resin on it. As you notice, the light changes. Every time white comes in it, it gets a different color. Again, it's so red and orangey looking compared to the first one that's blue and pink. Alright, so apparently I've got it down there after 20 minutes. Oh, no, still got to add some more resin. But basically just pouring a top coat. With my other ones, I just basically pour an ounce of resin total. This one probably took a little bit more because of how it kept jamming up. And there I go again, pouring more resin. But it's a pretty simple pour, except for when you do it wrong. But here's the finished piece the next day. And as you see, it's still kind of orangey red compared to that original one. The original one's on the left, and this is the one on the right. And I'll put in the description below which film this is that we're using, or that I'm using. So as you see, there's the finished product under the shooting lights. Look like two totally different films, but when it resolves to a different lighting situation, that's the close-up of it. When it resolves to a different lighting situation, you'll see the colors are very similar. But I love the little shapes that those bubbles create, or the film creates. It gives nice depth and texture to it. So as you see, the piece on the left was the original one I did. The piece on the right was the one we did today. They look from the same film to me.